¿Qué hay, amigos de TierraGamer? Hoy nos encontramos en una entrevista con Andy Salisbury, directivo de Monolith Productions, los desarrolladores de Middle Earth Shadow of War, y nos pudo contar muchas cosas del juego. Acompáñenme a verlo.
Alright, so we've got a ton of stuff today, which is kind of great. So we're here in the zone of Gorgoroth. There's a ton of stuff for us to dig into. There's a big, huge fortress assault, which is one of the citadels. These guys are the biggest, toughest fortresses we can go up against. So it's going to be really, really challenging and a lot of fun. There's also some story missions if we just want to maybe get used to the new gameplay mechanics or introduce ourselves to some of the new story characters. And then there's also, too, a bevy of big nemesis missions, which are going to be procedural just for this playthrough.
I have a lot of curiosity how the nemesis system has evolved with respect to Shadow of Mordor.
Yeah, that's great.
It's one of the, it's the only game in the world that uses artificial intelligence, and how has changed with respect to the game?
Yeah, so this time around it was all about expanding. You know, every single part of the game, including the nemesis system, was a huge point of emphasis on this time. We wanted to take what was best about Shadow of Mordor and just turn it up to 11. And so, you know, last time it was all about these kind of intense stories like of rivalry. You know, you'd have this one rival, there'd be a ton of bloodshed between you two, there'd be a ton of bad blood, and he would chase you down many regions later. You would throw him into a fire pit to kill him, and he would come back with these big scars on his face. So we've actually expanded on that tremendously. You know, those stories were so important to the players. In Shadow of Mordor, we can pause it too if we want to avoid these guys for a bit, or you can just murder them freestyle, either way. And so we expand on that by kind of creating a ton of new personalities, a ton of new combat classes to really kind of help up the diversity of every single enemy you go up against. But also too, we added in O-Logs, which is this brand new part of the nemesis system. They have an entirely different combat style. They have a personality all their own. They're going to really change the dynamic on the battlefield. And now all of these different captains and war chiefs belong to tribes. So for example, this guy is actually a member of the Machine Tribe. You can tell by his armor and his personality is really reflected. And so is his combat style. He's going to have special attacks that only members of the Machine Tribe can actually have. And even too, one step further from that now, as we kind of built out that initial system that was so integral to Shadow of Mordor, is now we've upped the follower system as well. So now every single time you dominate someone, you add them to your army, you go on missions with them to make sure that they're actually growing in power and they survive the nemesis missions that they go into. It's a great opportunity to now have them remember every single experience they had alongside you. You know, when you go out there and you're in the middle of a huge fortress assault and you save them because they're bleeding out and they're down on one knee, then they're actually going to remember that. They're going to be more loyal. They're going to be more likely to maybe come and save you if you're in a similar situation. Or if you send them on a mission that's certain death and they end up failing it and dying, there's a chance they might cheat death and come back and try and ambush you and really, you know, pay back that blood debt, I suppose, that they feel is owed. And all of that now culminates in these big, huge fortress assaults. So these are basically, there's one fortress in every single region in Shadow of War, and they have huge impacts throughout the entire region. So depending on, you know, the overlord who's in charge, again, this guy being a member of the Machine Tribe, I think, is it Machine Fortress or is it Dark Fortress? I can't remember. But the overlord in the fortress is going to have huge impacts throughout the entire region. First of all, the look of the fortress and the function of the fortress is going to change tremendously. You know, if we have a member of the Marauder tribe who's running it, then they're actually going to be really focused on getting gold and Mirian and loot, and so you can actually go into that fortress and actually kind of, you know, get some more money to kind of help fuel your war effort. Or if it's a member of the Machine Tribe, big huge smokestacks are going to pop up across the region as they kind of fuel the furnaces of war, so to speak, and the missions are going to change. You know, if there's a member of the Feral Tribe in charge, there's going to be more beast hunt missions, and there's going to be a lot more beast hunt activity in general just around the entire region. So really at the very core of every decision we were making to expand the nemesis system with, it was about making sure that your experience was truly your own. You know, you'd have experiences and stories that were going to be unique every single time you or your friend or your parents or whoever it is end up going through the game.
Well, I mean, how much complicated was all the development of this system?
Tremendously. You know, we when we were first making Shadow of Mordor, so much of it was this brand new challenge. You know, a lot of Monolith's past, in a lot of ways, if you look at our past games, there's a lot of AI-driven experiences. So, you know, it's something that we have a lot of experience in, but building a system like the Nemesis system, you know, we didn't necessarily understand entirely what it was at the very, very beginning, at the very, very inception. And it was incredible to sort of watch as our teams became way more integrated with each other. You know, we're in these meetings where there's a writer sitting next to a designer, sitting next to a producer, sitting next to an animator, sitting next to a character artist, sitting next to an engineer, sitting next to a guy who works on our engine team. Like, watching all these teams come together to make sure that it was a truly collaborative environment so we could really, truly get the most out of this system in every single aspect is probably one of the biggest learnings that we made. And as we moved into Shadow of Mordor, or pardon me, into Shadow of War, you know, we certainly had a lot of directions that we knew we wanted to focus, but it was this great opportunity for us just to build and make sure that it was really, truly something that would react to you as a player and have you be this really important component in the world.
Well, this is it's amazing.
Thank you so much.
I'm really excited.
Yes, that means a lot, you know, like it's been really cool, I think, working on this thing in quiet in our studio in Kirkland, Washington for the past 3 years, day in and day out, and to finally be in a position where we can just show it off to people means a lot. So thank you so much for coming out.
No, it's a great game, yes.
Yeah.
Well, this.
What is the relationship between the canon, Lord of the Rings, and this new Shadow of War?
Yeah, you know, it's interesting because as we were really going into this, everyone at the studio is such a big Tolkien fan themselves. You know, we have such great memories and such great stories of the first time our dad or uncle or mom or whoever it is read us The Hobbit, or the first time we were assigned to read it in middle school, or whatever the case is. Like, it's just something that we all hold so near and dear. And so as we were walking into this process, we knew it was incredibly important to make sure that we were as true to the professor's lore and his major tenets of the world as possible. You know, there's a lot of major themes that we stick within, and there's even to a point where we have a Tolkien scholar on staff who checks every single thing we do, you know, because there's so many greater themes that are present in Tolkien's universe. And even in one of his letters to the editor, he wrote that, I think it was words along the lines of, I wrote so many passages in this world in such great detail, but I left other little trails for other creators to come and pick up. And so given that we were all such hardcore Tolkien fans, we certainly saw that as an opportunity, but I think also too, in a much more realistic way, it was kind of a responsibility. You know, to make sure that we were staying as true to this universe that we all love so much. You know, when people come out and they're like, people are really defensive of this subject matter, our answer is they should be. You know, it's such a well-respected universe and it's so well-loved. And so to have the opportunity to build something in here and to be so inspired by this universe is an incredibly important part of our process.
Yes, and because the fans of Lord of the Rings are really, really important for them, all the story and what's surrounding the universe.
Yeah.
So I guess it moves to the next question, because Shadow of War has some things that are very innovative, and I guess 3 or 4 things that, or what do you believe that Shadow of War could bring to the Lord of the Rings universe?
You know, it's interesting because I think we feel so like it's such a great opportunity just to be able to play around it and be inspired by it. We really like to think that in a lot of ways too, as we're making the best video game possible set in Middle Earth, that, you know, we're able to kind of hopefully bring a lot to it. You know, when you look at especially something like the Nemesis system, so much of our inspiration is thinking about, you know, like what does an average Uruk foot soldier in Mordor think? You know, these people who live in this like desperately vicious world that's so hostile in every single way. How are guys bards? How are they, you know, how do they have moments of levity? How dark do they really get inside their heads and everything? And so I think really it's been in a lot of ways just sort of trying to expand on those ideas and those personalities and those major tenets of what it's like to be a foot soldier. Or, you know, it's been interesting as we were first developing it, some of our inspiration were old British gangster movies and prison gang documentaries and stuff, you know, as we kind of looked at how people kind of cultivate these different groups. And so I think expanding on that and kind of making it more than just, you know, ugly, you know, looking guys in the movies that are just there to swing a sword around, to really kind of, I think, expand this world and flesh it out in a way that is sort of a bit of a story behind the story, to us has just been the most rewarding experience.
Well, that's really, very interesting, really, because, well, here in Mexico, I guess, the Lord of the Rings has a community of fans very, very important. That they love this game, they love the franchise, and this game, it really feels like an other experience outside of the franchise, or it's has a very great relation with the canon.
Sure. You know, it's interesting because I think when we were digging into that exact thought process ourselves, you know, holding it close to the core tenets of the world is really, I think, the most important part. You know, one thing that comes up a lot is Shelob as well. Having a character as powerful as her in this universe, there's actually a really interesting precedent where you look at a situation where Shelob kind of taking a fair form and actually being able to kind of converse with Talion and Celebrimbor a bit more directly. You know, if you especially look back at Sauron's history as well, Sauron's this other being in Middle-earth that's of such great power and so connected to the history of Middle-earth in so many core ways. You know, a lot of people, it's interesting, at the very beginning of Shadow of Mordor, when he's returning to Mordor after the White Council kicks him out of Dol Guldur at the very end of The Hobbit, people don't usually realize that that's actually the second time that Sauron has been in Mordor trying to forge an army of his own and trying to take over Middle-earth. And he's had such a rich, deep history. You know, like when you see Sauron in the Peter Jackson films, for example, he's this big flaming eye. He's this featureless thing. But in the very beginning of the Fellowship of the Ring, there's also this situation where you kind of see him as this domineering presence on the battlefield, you know, swinging his hammer and taking out 10 troops at a time. But it's kind of interesting because if you also, too, go a few steps backwards, there's also him as Anatar, you know, the bringer of gifts, the one who actually handed the rings of power to the kings of men. And so it's interesting because there's actually a really strong precedent with these themes for these beings of great power to take the form that best suits them for their own purposes, you know. And so having Shelob, who's this, you know, basically the offspring of Ungoliant, one of the oldest, richest beings in Middle-earth in terms of their history, you know, it's been really interesting to, I think, dig into those major themes and see the core tenets with the universe is really propped up upon and really dig in deep to those.
Well, I guess our last question. What do you think? What do you have to talk to the community about all the controversy that was with the if it is a game pay to win or not? Because I guess on YouTube and all the social network has a lot of controversy about this topic. What did you have to talk to the community?
You know, the thing is, actually, I'm actually glad you asked that, because to our community as well, that's such an important point. And the one thing that's most important to remember is they are 100% optional. The game that we designed, the game that we built, nothing is behind a paywall in any way. Nothing is locked away from you. You can get legendary and epic orcs out in the world, and depending on how many fortresses assaults you go ahead and have, there's a good chance you're going to come across a lot of them. So they're really just there for people that want to happen to dig in deeper to the Nemesis system at any given time. But they're 100% optional. Even in my own playthroughs, I've never even touched them. So
yes, this is very important because many people are not know all this because they only see the bad part of the
sure.
This.
Yeah, I mean, I understand that concern, you know, but I think one thing to remember is it's really just entirely optional. It's just in there if you happen to want to check it out. Yeah,
it's very important for all. I think the people like you that are behind this game think that way because we as players feel that we deserve the complete game, the complete experience, and this kind of thing affects us so much.
Yeah,
the experience changed completely.
You know, I gotta say, for what it's worth, we agree. Like, every single thing in this game is the thing we designed. It's the thing we set out to make from the very, very get-go. So it really is, honestly, just a completely optional experience. It's really just there if you happen to want to dig into it. And even still, with the stuff we're continuing to develop, we've honestly spent pretty much up to the wire just making sure that every single aspect of Shadow of War is as well designed, as well developed, is as clean, as bug-free as possible. And so now at this point, we're just starting to actually create the additional story campaigns and stuff that we're really excited to start building. So when it comes to that kind of stuff, we've really held nothing back. Everything we could possibly stuff into Shadow of War is absolutely in there.
¿Qué hay, gente de TierraGamer? Acabamos de salir justo ahora de una entrevista con Andy Salisbury de Monolith Productions, los creadores de Middle-earth Shadow of War, y pudimos hablar de muchos temas. Bueno, entre muchas otras cosas que platicamos, lo primero que fue, hablamos del sistema Nemesis. Este sistema muy popular, es el único juego en el mundo que utiliza un sistema como este, en el que los enemigos reaccionan casi en tiempo real, así como también el mundo abierto, reacciona casi en tiempo real a nuestras acciones. Y un aspecto muy importante de esta nueva entrega, que es Shadow of War, con respecto a Shadow of Mordor, es que ahora también nosotros podemos suministrar y administrar nuestro propio ejército, tanto de orcos como de aliados, para poder tener una experiencia de juego más amplia. Es decir, ahora no solo nos encargamos de hacernos aliados en el ejército de orcos de Sauron, sino también de administrar nuestro propio ejército. Estuvimos platicando mucho de la narrativa. Tiene muchos cambios, obviamente, una adaptación de un libro a un juego, pero en general respeta mucho toda la identidad del Señor de los Anillos. La ambientación está muy bien hecha, aunque no mejoró tanto con respecto a la entrega pasada, sí sigue siendo muy vanguardista, se ve bastante bien todavía. Y también estuvimos checando cosas con respecto a la polémica que se estuvo generando de acuerdo con los micropagos. Nos pudo contar que esto no afecta de ninguna manera la experiencia del jugador, puesto que es solamente un aspecto más del juego. Es decir, si no es necesario que tú consigas todas las cosas, obviamente sí te ayuda muchísimo, pero no es necesario que tú consigas todas las cosas que vienen en el juego para poder ganar o ser mejor. Claro, en el aspecto online sí te ayuda mucho, pero no es algo que afecte a la experiencia de nosotros como jugadores. Y en general también pudimos ver que el juego se mantiene muy cercano. Hay muchas innovaciones en las mecánicas, se mantiene bastante continuista con respecto a Shadow of Mordor, pero sí tiene cosas nuevas. Se ha mejorado todo el sistema de escalado, el sistema de combate cuerpo a cuerpo, y en general el juego es una expansión, es decir, es el juego de Sombras de Mordor, pero hecho exponencialmente. Es decir, todo fue mejorado, todo fue pulido y nos entregan un juego mucho más completo.
Bueno, amigos de TierraGamer, muchas gracias por seguirnos en esta pequeña entrevista. Esperamos les haya gustado. No se les olvide seguirnos en nuestras redes sociales, Facebook y Twitter, y visiten la página de TierraGamer para más información. Y nos estamos viendo muy pronto. Hasta la próxima.